Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Antoine Bandele, and he is an Amazon best-selling author in action, adventure, fantasy, dark fantasy, sword and sorcery, African American fantasy, African literature, and young adult Norse myth and legends. He lives in Los Angeles with his life partner and cat. He also produces YouTube videos and is an audiobook engineer. Welcome, Antoine. It's so great to have you.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your newest book that just came out.
Yes, and the one that just dropped, I want to say at this point, 2 months ago, was TJ Young and the Orishas book three, which is called The Hero's Equinox. It's definitely solidly in like the young adult space. Like when the series started, it was more like upper middle grade, but like as it's been, coming of age, TJ is solidly like an angsty teen now.
Absolutely. There's a little bit more romance in there too, which will appeal to that young adult crowd.
First loves and things like that. While he's trying to, defend the universe from like, this huge cosmic threat. And it's like, nah, I just want to be a teenager. Like the very first line of the book is, being the hero sucks. Where in the first book, he was like, I want to be like my older sister. I want to be like, this hero and I want to have all these powers. And now he's like, I don't want these powers anymore. I want to be a teenager. I don't want this life.
Yeah, and then you start wondering, like, why aren't the grown-ups helping you? Like, why is it just up to the teenagers to resolve this big issue? That's awesome. So the intended age group, as you say, this is kind of more into that YA space. So if as folks have maybe started your series, they were at that upper middle grade, like 12, 13, and then now they're sort of more into that 15, 16-year-old range. Is that about right?
That is completely correct. Yes.
Awesome. So what made you want to become a writer and also a writer for this particular age group?
Well, actually, I mean, writing has been part of my life like since I was a kid. So even when I was maybe 6 or 7, I was writing stories and like drawing comic books. I remember my parents would take me to like Office Depot and get my stories laminated, and it felt really like legit. Even like, okay, so I grew up in the 90s, so having even your name typed out, like even if you were like on the principal's list or whatever, right, in the hallway, and you're like, oh my god, my name's in ink or whatever. Now it's like whatever, it's like, you print it out, we have phones everywhere, so like digital names are not a crazy thing. But back then, like, if you seeing your name in print or seeing something laminated, you're like, oh, it's official, kind of a thing. But I never really pursued writing, even though people around me in my orbit were like, you should be writing. Oh, I like your stories. I always like did something else. Whether, when I was really, really young, it was sports. I was really into like baseball and like flag football and stuff like that. Then when I got to out of high school, I went to a program called Inner City Filmmakers. And there I won the screenplay award out of like, I forget how big that class was, but it was the first time anyone won that screenplay award. And then I was like, no, I'm not gonna write. I'm gonna do YouTube content creation. So then I went to university. I was a multimedia major, and in my writing class, the writer professor was like, "Yo, you should be writing." And also, I didn't realize how much writing people could do during that time. Now it's a little bit different today, but like he was like, yeah, like radio commercials, they need a writer for that. Ad copy, you need a writer. Like he was explaining to us like how you can, monetize your writing. But still, I was like, no, I'm gonna do this directing thing, whatever. So I just kept denying, denying, denying. Fast forward to season 6 of Game of Thrones. That's the spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Game of Thrones, but it's been out for like 10 years. It's the one where Jon Snow dies, and that's when I had caught up to everybody, and I was like, "Oh no, I want more of this." But then specifically, I was like, "I want this, but like in an African setting." So then I started looking up other authors and other books. So that's how I got into N.K. Jemisin and Nnedi Okorafor. But they didn't write the books exactly that I was looking for. So then I just went and wrote the books myself. Initially, I started off with adult epic fantasy, like with the Kishi, which is like this actual folklore from the Kimbudu people from modern day Angola. And my brother, who is a dungeon master, was like, "Hey, there's like this creature, and there's like a little tiny line at the bottom being like, this comes from African folklore." And I was like, let me do that research. So I did like a year of research for that and a bunch of other stuff. Started doing that. Then I did a Sky Pirate series, which is still adults. But then I was summer camp counselor in 2018, 2019. And I really enjoyed like, being with kids and stuff like that. And I wanted to write something because everybody would ask like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I write or whatever. I do consecration. And I was like, I don't have anything for you guys though. I haven't wrote anything that's appropriate for you. Come in my Game of Thrones, dark fantasy, grim dark, phase or whatever. So then I started doing that. I started reading some of those old series like Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. And at that time, I think Children of Blood and Bone was coming out. as well as all those, Hunger Games, all like the big, YA stuff. And yeah, then I started writing TJ Young, which has become my biggest success as an indie author right now. It's currently optioned for a motion picture, which my plan initially was just to write the entire series and then look for like a manager, an agent, or something like that to like shop it. But by the time I put out book two, a bunch of producers started like emailing me, and then I got like a lawyer and figured out like what rates, I was supposed to give, and eventually a producer came to me and then I knew what my rate was and I said, hey, this is my rate. And they're like, all right, cool, we'll do it. And I was like, okay. But then, the SAG actor or strike happened and the writer's strike happened. So that like kind of like delayed it a little bit. But right now, currently it is like in August, the screenplay is due for it. So we'll see how that goes. But I will say this, Hollywood is very fickle. Like, and also right now in particular, like the industry is like going through it.
Are you able to have any sort of say as far as the screenplay version of your book, or is someone taking that off your hands and like modifying it without your input?
No, I can consult, and it's just whether or not they'll take the notes or not. But I don't. There's nothing in the contract saying that I get like final looks or anything like that.
How is it looking so far? Is it staying true to what you envisioned, or how
The
are
first draft definitely was. The second draft, I definitely was a little bit more challenging to get through. But now I'm trying to see. I'm waiting to see what this second draft actually becomes. Because the second pitch, third pitch, whatever that I like, listened into, was more promising. And not so much that it's exactly one for one. And that's what I told them initially. I was like, I don't care for it to be one to one. I don't think that should be the case because it's a different medium. What I really care about is like the spirit of the book being there. And that I felt like when I heard that the most recent pitch was a factor.
that's great and how exciting to have your words like brought to life on a screen. How so that's really cool. So as you're talking about West African mythology and the research that you've been doing, what does that research look like? And I know that you also incorporate other global mythologies as well into especially this later edition of this book.
Yeah, so right before I did the grim dark, dark fantasy stuff, I had done research for African history, period. So I did like a global history on Africa, all the way from like the cradle of civilization to like modern times. Then I started narrowing down. So that's when I started looking at like, Angola for like the Kishi thing, or looking at the Yoruba, which is part of the modern Nigeria and Benin, which is the people who have the Orishas, which is what the young adult series is based on. And I started just narrowing down. Like, and then with my Sky Pirate stuff, that was mostly like East African, Caribbean, a little bit of Middle Eastern stuff in there as well. And I've always been a fan of like true diversity because sometimes I feel like when the word diversity is used, people just think like POC. But I personally believe diversity means everything and everyone at the same time. And that also includes white people, which seems to be like, hey, don't forget, like they're part of the world too. They're part of humanity. So that's why I do a lot of that. That's why in the most recent book, you'll see like a lot of like Norse mythology, and you have like Shango hanging out with like Thor and stuff like that. And I've always been like that with all my stuff, even prior to doing books, whether I've been doing like, my film stuff or screenplay stuff back in the day. I've always tried to include like everything as much as possible because I'm more of like a humanist than anything else. Like that's when I am first as a humanist.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's really cool for readers, I feel like, to maybe have only had one taste of mythology in school and then start to read your series and realize, oh, there's this entire world of mythology that I can dive into. So it's a great starting point for that too, I think.
Yeah, I've gotten that a lot. A lot of people being like, I didn't even know what this. I mean, even me, I didn't know. Like, the reason I even know about the Orishas is because, again, with my multimedia background, I was an editor on this Nigerian film that depicted the Orishas, and I was like, what the heck? What are these? No, is this like the Greek gods or whatever? They're like, no, 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 they're deities, but they're kind of similar. There's like a little bit of a pantheon going on. I was like, what in the world? Like, like how is this not? Same with the Kishi when I did my dark fantasy. I was like, wait, how does this not have appeared in a book, or how is this not like a storyline when, like, especially when it has such a cool mythology behind it? It's like it lends itself to a plot. So yeah, like I get that a lot from people being like, oh, I had no idea this existed, and I'm glad that like I learned through this.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character or a favorite moment from your series, from this TJ Young series?
Yes, it's the one in book one when TJ sees the girl he likes, he has a crush on, and he hears what he thinks sounds like Spanish that she's speaking, and so he like walks over and goes, like, "All right, cool, I'm gonna impress her with my Spanish that I learned from like being from LA or whatever." So he goes over there, like says some like little one-liner in Spanish, and they're all like looking at him like, "What are you? What? Are you speaking Spanish?" And they're like, "Dude, we're like speaking Portuguese." And I'm like, and he, well, I'm not like, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed," like you red in the face, the typical like teenage, you know, anxiety you have, and it's just worsened when you like, try to put yourself out there, and then you're like, "Oh crap." Um, so yeah, that one's a big one that I like in the series, the embarrassment of being a teen.
Awesome. There are, I feel like, several moments between TJ and Manny where that happens, where it's like, oh, I try
Yes.
to be like really cool and then I'm just not.
Yeah, don't make it weird, dude.
Yeah, I also really appreciate that you incorporate not only English and various other languages, but also sign language throughout the book. And I'm excited to see that kind of play out on the screen as well. Like, I think that'll be really interesting to have
Yeah, that'd be
so many
cool.
layers.
Yeah, I and that yeah again again with the diversity thing, even diversity within like the Black community, because like even the trio of the book, they're all different facets of like the Black community. So you have TJ, who's like your typical Black American. He's probably the one that's like most familiar to people. And then you have Ayodeji, who is like Nigerian, not Nigerian American, like Nigerian, which is a difference between being like a Black American and being like like an actual like African African. Then you have Manny, her full name being Manuela Martinez, and she is a Afro Latina, which is something that the Black community has a thing like where it's like especially with, like Dominicans in particular, they're like, no, I'm Dominican before I'm Black, don't call me Black, and like there's a thing with that, but that's part of like the pool. Like there's a big history and there's different kinds of origin points for different Black people within the Americas, and I wanted to like represent that via the trio, to see that. And then you also see more of it too when you see like the teachers and the other kids, stuff like that. You have like Creole in there, you have like Southern, so I made sure that that was all implemented.
That comes through really nicely in the book, actually. You have this, I feel like more of a genuine melting pot than you might in other forms of literature. And that then invites kids and people, readers of all backgrounds to kind of find somewhere that they fit within
Mhm.
this group. And I think that's really great. What do you hope that readers come away with after reading this book in particular and the series in general?
Just to have fun. Like that's I like I'm not like a big like, oh, it's gotta be like the most like deep experience you need to have. Like, not just I want you to be at the end and be like, that was a fun experience. Oh, I want to get into the next one. It was such a good time just being with these kids and seeing their adventures and seeing them grow up, stuff like that. Just good vibes and just having a good time. Like not necessarily over here trying to like, make it so that you can write like, an essay about, things. I mean, people can't do that. But the main thing is just to be entertained.
We need a lot of that right now, so I think that that's a great reason to have this book
Mhm.
out. Do you ever get feedback from readers, especially teen readers, by email or anything else? Have
Oh
you
my
heard
God, yes.
anything from them?
Oh, I just did this live event because I do live events now, and I did a Culver City Book Festival. Oh, I wonder if I still have it. Dang, I wish I had it on. It would take me too long to like to get it. But this middle school girl, because at that event they had like volunteers or whatever. She came by and gave me a personalized, like handwritten note. Man, I wish I had it right now. I'm gonna summarize what I remember of it basically. And she said, of all the people I came to, like you were so cool. You had such a good vibe, and like the story was really good. And then the thing is about the story, so these young people will read it within like an afternoon. So I doing this event, she had got the book, came back the next day and was like, "Oh, I'm already halfway through." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. Like, what's happening right now?" And she like tells me like a specific plot point that only someone who's read the book would know. And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, then I remembered. I was like, "No, wait, I used to be that kid. Like, I read Harry Potter in an afternoon. You know what I mean? When I was 10, 11, however old I was at that point. And now I can't really do that anymore. I mean, when you become an adult, you lose a lot of time, and just being able to just read a book in an afternoon, very difficult to do. And I was like, oh, that kind of reminded me, of that. But yeah, like teen readers in particular, when they come up and they engage with it is like super, super important to me.
Awesome. What advice would you give to authors or readers as they're going along their own personal journeys, whether they end up wanting to be writers or something else?
Stop calling yourself an aspiring writer. That is like the first step. Like when people are like, "Oh, I want to be a writer," or "I'm thinking about writing a book," change that to, "Oh, I am a writer. I am writing a book." And treat yourself as though you are a professional writer, which includes reading and writing with intention. And that's the big thing too. I would say not just reading because people tell you like, oh, read all the time. Not so much as reading all the time, but reading with intention, like reading with like keep it. And it's gonna suck though a little bit. So there is sacrifice to doing that. So if you do want to be a writer, if you want to be professional at it, um, you're gonna kind of ruin everything that you're going to read or watch because you're always going to be analyzing structure from it. So that is one thing. So that's caveat. Like, be careful with that because when you do that, you won't be able to like watch stuff the same anymore. You can't just like turn off your brain and be like, I'm just gonna enjoy this thing, because you're always like engaging with it. But yeah, actively reading is a huge thing.
Great. Um, so besides your screenplay that's coming together, what other projects do you have in the works?
I don't know when this is coming out, but right now, currently, when we're recording this, there is a Kickstarter that is live right now. It's compiling the first three books of the series, and also including deleted scenes, artwork, and something called author commentary. So similar to how if you have like a DVD commentary or like a behind the scenes commentary for like a movie, and you hear like the directors and the actors talking, I have that, but in the form of like footnotes within the book. So I'm doing that collection right now. Right now we've already funded the project, but we're looking to do a comic book for the first short story that involves Eshu, the gatekeeper, who's one of the Orishas who leads us into the story. And if we get there and we're like $1,500 away from it right now, we would do that comic book.
That's great. Well, since you brought it up, I'd love to talk a little bit about the illustrations that you have along with your
Hmm.
stories. They really capture the feel of the book. And can you
Yeah,
talk a little
shout
bit about
shout
how
outs
those?
to Author Bowling in particular because that's the artist name. And it's funny because I just found him via also something I recommend is reedsy.com, Reedsy. If especially if you're doing indie publishing, you're doing it yourself. Because the thing is that when I do things myself, as you can see with like these producers who have come to me emailed me like I look like I'm professionally done, I'm traditionally published because I put in that work. I get the editors, I get the beta readers, the alpha readers, and I get proofers and audiobook professional narrators and professional artists. So yeah, I found him through that website. And yeah, like I basically just told, well, so initially I wanted to do like chapter art, realized very quickly how expensive that is because you're making like 40 pieces, 50 pieces of art, at a time. So then I was like, all right, what's the compromise here? How about I just do like act break art so that I can only have to do three instead of having to do 40, and that significantly reduces it. So that's basically what I did. And I told him, like how because me and him also, grew up in the 90s. Like, hey, you remember how there was like little smashes of illustrations in some of our chapter books and things like that? I was like, that's basically what I'm going for. So he did that for the interior art. So for example, in the first book, I think the first piece of art is when TJ first manifests his magic with water magic, and then the second one is him like going into Camp Alosa, which is his like remedial magic camp. So you see like the swampy, woodsy pillars going up, and I really look like that design in particular because Campalosa, the OLO looks like like two eyeballs and like a nose. So he made that look like whimsical, the whimsy that you would see from like Goosebumps and stuff like and Percy Jackson back in the day. And then like the end part when they go to the water realm, and so he has like these little art pieces that like send you through the story, but they're like major key points of it being chapter art, which is way expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they came together really nicely. So you found a good match for your work. Is there a question that I did not ask you that you wish that I had asked you or that you were expecting me to ask?
Not really. I don't really. I just come in here, I listen, and then I answer. I don't really think about, all that stuff.
Well, I'll ask you a little bit about the audiobook actually,
Yeah, for
since I know
sure.
that that's something you do too. So you do a lot of the audio yourself. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, when you say myself, not that I narrate them, I
Okay.
am not. I will flub like right now. Like if I were to read something, like right here, like this is an important tax info. This is an important tax. I will just do that for like the entirety of and I cannot get through anything without flipping. So yeah, you get professional narrators who can just like. I have this one narrator. His name is John Joseph Rogers. He's the first narrator I worked with on my dark fantasy stuff. He is a unicorn. He'll just like read through an entire like page without like taking a breath while performing, while changing voices, and like I'm like I don't know how you guys do that. That's a talent unto itself. But no, I'm the engineer. I do the production, so I add like the music and the sound effects in particular for the young adult series because they have like a lot of telepathy, so you have like the very echoey voice, or you'll have like a monster voice if something's like in there. Phone calls will have like little effects and stuff like that, and I have like little interludes. So at the beginning of chapters have like the sounds of a swamp or sounds of a forest or a classroom, something like that. And I do that also for other authors for my services called AB Book Services. So for authors out there who like need formatting or editing or narrators or audiobook production, I like do all that as well. So that all already like just like oh that works with my multimedia major. I just use that within my publishing world.
Sounds like you found a really great way to blend all of your interests and techniques and be able to make not only this great series, but also support other authors in the process. I think that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely a pragmatist in that way for sure.
And also very busy, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm actually just talking about that with my friends last night, being like, yo, I need to like take on less things. Because then, things suffer if you don't, if you keep taking on new projects or you don't finish the last one kind of a thing. So, doing too much can be an issue too.
Yes, saying no can be hard sometimes. I understand that feeling well.
Hmm.
So, Antoine, is there something that you would like to say specifically to readers, or is there a place that they can find you and your work? Where would you like them to go?
Yeah, everything you can find on me is going to be at AntoineBandele.com.
Okay, we'll get everyone there. If TJ Young in the Orishas series sounds like a great fit for you, I hope you look for it wherever you get your books. And Antoine, thank you again so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
See everyone. Bye.